Morning, all. It's Sunday. Tomorrow's going to be Memorial Day. Lots of things to think about over this weekend. Anyway, I'm going to read chapter 29 of Shepherd's Quest, book 1 of the Broken Key Trilogy with commentary. Last chapter of the book, so it's not going to be too long. It's always a question as to how to end books. And if it's in a series, this is the start of a trilogy, you kind of want to get it set up to give the reader an idea of what might be going on in the next book, make it interesting, so hopefully they'll continue on. And you need a conclusion. All books need a conclusion of some kind. And I think I did pretty well with this one. Anyway, here's chapter 29. They're almost back at the marketplace. They got another key. And here we go. The forest was quiet as they made their way from the lake. They knew the general direction to the marketplace from when they had snuck out of it. Bart stayed some distance ahead of the others so he could better determine if there were goblins about. That bothers me. They knew the general direction of the marketplace from when they had snuck out of it. Is it plain to the reader that I am referring to when at the beginning when they arrived at the marketplace and they snuck into? Okay, not snuck into it, but not snuck out of it, but snuck into goblin territory days ago. There we go. Days ago, week ago, probably days, right? Days? Yeah. Okay, Bart stayed some distance ahead of the others so he could better determine if there were goblins about. Riyan, Chad, and Chadric followed along behind and made sure they didn't lose him. They made their way through the trees for over an hour before Bart came to a halt. The others stopped, though I have it written as stooped. The others stopped once they realized he had and waited. He stood motionless for several seconds before ducking down low. "Get down," whispered Riyan as he scrunched down near the base of a nearby tree. The other two followed suit. It wasn't long before the sound of several goblins made their way through the underbrush from the direction of the marketplace. It wasn't long before the sound of several goblins making their way through the underbrush from the direction of the marketplace reached them. The path the goblins took would lead them close to where they hid. Riyan held his breath as they approached. He could hear their guttural language being spoken as they passed by, and even caught a glimpse of their silhouettes in the moonlight. The smoke in this area wasn't so thick that it would obscure them. There were at least 5. The goblins, completely oblivious to the humans hiding just yards away, continued on by. Not until their voices could no longer be heard did Bart return to his feet. Riyan waved to him, saying they were okay and for him to continue. Bart waved back and then resumed moving toward the marketplace. It took them another 3 hours before they saw the light of a solitary campfire at the marketplace. At this point, Bart waited while the other 3 joined him. Then they moved forward as a group. Bart still took the lead, but the others stayed right behind him. Every few minutes, Bart would pause to listen for any sound out of the ordinary, then would continue. Time and again, he would pause, listen, and then continue on. When the buildings of the marketplace became visible through the trees, he started to edge around them to where the mountains began their rise. During a brief pause, Bart explained what he intended for them to do. "If we move around the marketplace and come at the pass on the far side," he explained quietly, "we'll attract less attention." "Wonder if the soldiers stationed there would come to our aid if the goblins were to attack us?" asked Riyan. "Only if we were on the other side of the totems," replied Bart. "This side is goblin territory. We need to get past the totems to be safe." "Then let's do it," urged Riyan. Bart nodded and they resumed their progress. As they made their way around the edge of the marketplace, they noticed that the marketplace had a deserted look. The area where many caravans had been camped before was now empty. It looked like there were no merchants to trade with the goblins. "Could be due to the approaching fire," suggested Chadric. "They may wait until the threat is past before returning." "Sounds plausible," agreed Chad. "Should make it easier for us to get through." 15 minutes later, they reached where they had to begin angling to the pass. Riyan felt extreme relief when they crossed through the line of totems. They were safely on the human side again. But then Bart brought them to a halt as he pointed to the mouth of the pass. Even though the marketplace was deserted, there was still a contingent of soldiers stationed there. Half a dozen stood around a solitary campfire they had initially seen a short time ago. The soldiers were no more than a dozen yards from the mouth of the pass. Any attempt to enter the pass would surely be discovered. "What does it matter if they see us or not?" asked Kevik. "We have no business being here," replied Bart. "If it became known that we had spent time in Goblin territory, there would arise certain questions which we would be reluctant to answer." Kevik turned to him. "You mean about the key and what you three are trying to do?" "That's right," he said. "The less others know about what we do, the less someone else can beat us to it." "But they can't do anything about the keys we carry here, are you?" "True. But if it became common knowledge that we carry them," Bart explained, "our lives wouldn't be worth spit. Everyone would be after them." In the darkness, they worked to come up with a plan to drive the soldiers away from the pass. Most of the ideas, including Chad's, which was to set the forest on fire, weren't very practical. Then Bart came up with an idea that might just work. The others offered their opinions, and together they worked it out. Half an hour later, they had it all set. They returned to their place among the trees near the pass, everyone that was but Riyan. He stood in position at one of two small trees that were bent over and held in place with ropes. He stood in Ryan's hand was the knife he had found in the treasure room, the one with the dragon's sword coat of arms depicted on the crossguard. When he had allowed enough time to pass and figured the others to be in position, he cut the rope of the first tree. The tree snapped up and threw a score of hand-sized rocks toward the far side of the marketplace. The rocks struck the side of the canyon less than 100 feet from the 6 soldiers at the campsite. Bart had aimed it perfectly. By the time Riyan had joined the others, hang on one second. The soldiers weren't at the campsite. They were at a fire, but not a campsite. So I changed the campsite to the mouth of the pass. So now it reads, the rock struck the side of the canyon less than 100 feet from the 6 soldiers stationed at the mouth of the pass. Bart had aimed it perfectly. By the time Riyan had rejoined the others, 3 of the soldiers had gone to investigate the noise. As soon as Bart saw Riyan return, and that the 3 soldiers investigating the noise were in the proper position, he said, "Now, Kevik." Kevik nodded and dispelled the green goo that had been holding the other rope of the second tree. When the goo disappeared, the tree straightened up rapidly and launched about 40 small pebbles outward that had been nestled in a piece of bark wedged between 2 of its branches. The pebbles rained down on the 3 soldiers who were investigating the first volley of rocks. Cries of alarm rang out as they were struck by the missiles. The remaining 3 not the campsite again. The remaining 3 soldiers immediately rushed to their aid. "Now," whispered Bart as they ran for the entrance to the pass. Not until they were some distance beyond the campfire did they finally slow down. They looked back to see if the soldiers were showing any indication that they had seen their passing, but the mouth of the pass remained empty. "We made it," whispered Chad excitedly. "Yes, we did," replied Riyan with a grin. Bart glanced back at the jubilant pair and said, "Best if we don't celebrate just yet. Once we're past Crag Keep, then we can relax." That sobered them up quickly. They had forgotten about the checkpoint at the other end where their forged passes had been examined on the way in. Somehow, they would have to get past them too. Moving quickly, they continued through the pass. Several hours later, it began to lighten with the coming of the dawn. An hour after that, a solitary rider was heard approaching from the Crag's Keep side. With nowhere to hide, they simply continued on. The rider turned out to be a soldier, possibly one from Crag Keep. He was quick to notice them there in the pass and slowed as he approached. "What are you boys doing here?" he asked. "Came here to see goblins," Bart explained to him, "but the soldiers at the other end wouldn't let us through, told us to leave." The soldiers got that look people get when they hear something dumb. Why in the world would you boys want to see a goblin, he asked. Mean and vicious they are. Bart shrugged. Just did. Still want to. The marketplace isn't a safe place for those with no business there, the soldier explained. They were right to send you away. He then looked at each in turn and said, You continue on to Crag Keep. Once there, keep going. Yes, sir, replied a humbled Bart. The soldier gave them another stern gaze and continued on his way. They could hear him hear him mumble to himself. Not talking, but mumble to himself, because people mumble these things. Mumble to himself about the idiots of the world as he left them behind. That was smart thinking, Kevik said. A good lie is worth its weight in gold, he said. Been thinking about what to tell someone in just such a circumstance ever since we entered the pass. Kevik nodded. How much farther to this Crag Keep? On foot? Probably reach it sometime tomorrow, he replied. They continued toward the keep at a brisk walk. They worried that the soldier they had encountered, when he reached the other soldiers at the marketplace, they may put 2 and 2 together and come up with the 4 of them. I'm tired because last night we had a dilly of a storm. Power went out for 3 hours, and and it's pretty hot here. It's getting highs like 80s, 90s now, and massive humidity. But anyway, so the wind was just whipping really, really hard. Lightning, thunder. I thought I might have heard a tornado pass by, but I'm not really sure. I didn't see one. I looked out, but I didn't see one. So I went back to bed. By the time it grew dark, no one had appeared from the marketplace's side of the pass. Despite the exhaustion they felt, Bart pushed them onward. It will be easier to make it past Crag Keep in the dark than it would be in broad daylight, he argued. So onward they went. Most of the night went by before they saw the campfire of those watching the Crag Keep end of the pass. Bart had the others remain back as he moved forward to take a look. To take a look around. To take a look. Yeah, I don't like around. He kept to the shadows as he approached. Once he could see the men around the campfire, he came to a stop. There were 3 of them standing near the fire. One had a horn slung at his side. They conversed among themselves, completely oblivious to the fact that there was someone in the darkness watching them. Bart gauged the situation, then quickly took off his pack and set it on the ground. He knelt down and removed his darts from his pack. I don't think I need from his pack. Less is more, right? What's he doing? Whispered Riyan as they watched Bart. They couldn't tell what he was doing, just that he was doing something with his pack. I don't know, replied Chad. Bart glanced back to them. He heard them whispering to one another and hoped they would have the good sense to keep it down. Once he had the tips of 3 of his darts coated from liquid contained with one of his vials, he took them in hand and stood up. He then moved a little closer to the 3 men. When he was in position, he took a dart and threw it. Before it struck the first soldier, the second was already on its way. The first dart struck one of the guards in the shoulder, causing him to cry out. Before the other 2 realized what was happening, they too were struck. Riyan saw Bart throw the darts and immediately raced to him. He kept an eye on the soldiers while he rushed to Bart's side and saw the one with the horn raise it to his lips. But the note never came as the man swooned and collapsed to the ground. The other 2 soldiers fell shortly afterward. You killed them, he yelled accusingly to Bart. Shh, Bart said. Keep it down. He moved toward the 3 fallen soldiers. They're not dead, just unconscious and will wake in a couple hours. Are you sure? Riyan asked. Yes. Now let me retrieve my darts, then we can get out of here. He moved to the guards, and when he noticed the other 3 were planning on joining him, he said, Stay out of sight. Riyan nodded as he, Chad, and Kevin came to a stop. Bart went among the 3 soldiers and quickly pulled his darts out from where they had struck. True, each of the soldiers would have a telltale wound, but it couldn't be helped. Once he had recovered his darts, he returned to his pack and replaced them in with the others. He glanced to the walls of Crag Keep and was relieved to find no indication that those there had noticed anything. Finally, he stood up and said, Let's make time. Then he moved out and they practically ran as they made their way past the walls of Crag Keep. They kept far enough away so as not to be observed by the guards walking atop the walls and didn't stop until the sun was crossing the horizon. At that time, they found an out-of-the-way place to make camp. They didn't keep a watch that night. Everyone was so exhausted from the almost 2 whole days without sleep, plus the final run from Crag Keep, that they practically passed out immediately when their blankets were rolled out and they laid down. They slept the day through and didn't awaken again until almost nightfall. 2 days later, found them in the small town of Avern, where the river that flowed out of the pass past Crag Keep intersected the north-south highway running along the eastern side of the mountains. They ate their meal in the room, as they required privacy for what they were discussing, where to find the remaining 2 segments of the key. Riyan explained to the others his idea. This idea started to develop as we rode the river that last time in your makeshift door raft, he said to Bart, when we were each in our rooms, our loops, the 4 separate loops. Remember, they had the door and they had the loop. I got to thinking about how it was similar to that wall you found with the 4 spaces. That was the one at the bottom of the pit, where he went, and they were holding the river back on the door, and there was the 4 niches, so it was like the door with the 4 loops. Yes, I remember, Bart said. It wasn't until we were past Crag Keep that it came back to me, he said. You said that each of the recesses bore one of the coats of arms we found in the crypt. Again, Bart nodded. So I began thinking that there may be something significant about the 4 coats of arms. 4 coats of arms, 4 segments. You mean like each segment is associated with a different coat of arms? Asked Bart. Something like that. Didn't you put the first one in the space with the king's coat of arms? Yes, I did, affirmed Bart. The sigils on the key segment aligned perfectly to the sigils that were on the wall. And the second key segment was found in Algoth, whose lord's coat of arms was a dragon sword. So let me get this straight, Kevik said. Are you thinking that each of the other 2 segments are to be found in places associated with the other 2 coats of arms? Kind of like each of them had a hand in hiding one of the segments? Precisely, Riyan said. We need to find out all we can about them, where they were seen, who they were associated with, those sorts of things. But how are we to find those things out, Bart asked, without arousing suspicion, that is. We have to find somewhere that holds records of coats of arms, replied Riyan. Only the Warriors Guild has a complete record of past and current coats of arms, explained Kevik. My master once mentioned he had to gain permission from the guild master in Gilbeth to research their archives concerning one. I doubt if they would allow us access. Riyan glanced calculatingly at Chad for a moment and said, they might to guild members. Probably, replied Chad, but who do we know that... Then he saw Riyan grin. You don't mean... Riyan nodded. You and I could join the Warriors Guild. How? He asked. As I understand such things, Bart interjected, there's usually 2 ways in which you can join one of the guilds. Either have a member advance your petition, usually due to the fact you are a son or some kind of relative in such case, or buy your way in. The buying option could get pretty pricey. Riyan reached into his pack sitting on the floor nearby and pulled out a handful of gems. I think we got that covered. Then he turned to Chad. What do you say? Would beat the heck out of being a miller. Period. I have it as a question mark, but I don't think that's a question. It's more of a statement. Chad nodded. You're on. I say we do it. Bart looked at Kevik. What do you say? Are you in too? Riyan and Chad turned their attention to Kevik. We'd like to have you, Chad said. Kevik nodded. I'm in. Fantastic, said Riyan. I propose that we each swear an oath that we keep secret all things concerning our search for the king's Horde. That from this point on we are brothers bound in common purpose. He glanced to the others. Then, as one, the 4 comrades spoke, I so swear. And that's the end of the book. That's it. And then the quest continues in Hunter of the Horde, Book 2 of the Broken Key Trilogy, which I am not going to be reading here today. Will I read it at some point later? Yes. But my first priority is to get my 3 free books that I have out there that's free for downloads read. That way I'm not going to lose any income. After I get done with Adventures Guild, I'll make the determination what to do after that. All my family's telling me, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. You can't give away something for free that you hope people will buy for. Well, I've thought about that. And if while I'm reading it, I could ask people to buy the book to help support me, that might work. maybe I'll do that. I'll start that buy me a coffee thing where people can support me, can help me in maybe in helping me get money for audiobooks or advertising or something like that if they want to. So people who are reading it could say, well, instead of spending the money on this, and the book company gets the royalty, I don't really want the book, but I'll donate to buy me a coffee, and that way you'll get more, which will be fine. So I might do that. Worst case scenario, say after the Adventurers Guild, I work through Mordechai Saget and I start doing book 2, book 3, and sales for those to start going down, right? I can just archive them and just stop it, and then redo it. But I kind of want to, but it's a financial thing. I'm already skittering on poverty level. You wouldn't believe it, but I am. And so I gotta write I gotta write where I can get paid for it, and I gotta do things where I can maximize that, so I can start doing audiobooks and maybe Spanish. Spanish is like another language is like $20,000 per book, so I'm a long way from that. I've always wanted it in Spanish. I know it's not the second biggest language in the world, but I've always wanted Spanish. Probably because I grew up in California and half my high school were Mexicans who spoke Spanish. So, yeah. Anyway, that's some of my thoughts. And tomorrow, I'll do the prologue of Adventurers Guild, and we'll get that one going. Man, Adventurers Guild, I absolutely love Adventurers Guild. I mean, some people think Jacobs is annoying, but I just like the whole setup of it. And I have a vision of what I want the cover to be, but I need an artist to actually do it. And I don't think my daughter's going to. She's working full time at dialysis and doing full time nursing, or almost full time nursing school or college, so she can get the basics out of the way to be approved for nursing school. So she really has no free time to idle her way and making me a book cover. I think she did a really good job, but I don't think she has the time. So I'm gonna have to, when I get extra money, I'll start doing that. But should I do book covers first? Should I do audiobooks next? I'm thinking book covers. That's a lot cheaper. Yeah. Anyway, you have a good day, good Sunday, and I'll talk to you all tomorrow.